All right. Look at me being right on time. I don't know if anybody was here for the Q&A that happened before I hit the trail, but I was like 10 minutes late to my own stream because of technical issues. But yeah, if y'all don't mind, if anyone is sitting there waiting, check in, let me know that you can hear me and everything is good on your end. And also go ahead.
Yeah, if y'all don't mind,
Oops.
if anyone is.
And go ahead and put in the chat, let's see, I don't know, where you're checking in from and one of your favorite trails. How about that? Someone let me know you can hear me. Awesome. Great, yay. Thank you guys. I think there's a little bit of a delay between me actually speaking and then it hitting the wide web. So there might be some little things. What's up, y'all? Florida, Tennessee, Maine, Mass. Good to see all y'all. I recognize some of y'all's names too. Thank you so much for all of the encouragement y'all have been giving me. Yeah, that really made such a huge difference. The Foothills Trail, that is always a favorite. Asheville, that's where I'm at. So cool. Sweet. Well, if you guys don't have one already, get yourself a drink. I just made myself a tea and it is way too hot for me to even attempt right now. So I'm gonna hang out a little bit with it. But yeah, keep on checking in. And also y'all feel free to throw in there into the chat any other questions you have. I wrote down a lot of the common questions that I got back from you guys from YouTube and also from Instagram. So kind of as we get going here, I'll pick through those questions, but if I'm missing anything or you want clarification on anything, throw it in the chat because I got that over here that I'm watching at the same time. What is up, y'all? Man, Scotland, get out of town. This is so cool. All right. Oh gosh. Yeah, well, I just want to kick things off, I guess, by saying thanks to all y'all for all of your support. The Appalachian Trail is not a small adventure for sure. And, you know, I felt confident the whole time. And the days that I wasn't feeling 100%, I definitely carried a lot of y'all's support and encouragement with me. That made a huge difference. So thank you all for being here too, because gosh, I could just talk about this all day. Yeah, I am pretty different today as I have been in my videos. I actually had a job interview this morning and I just rolled with whatever I was wearing for a professional job interview. So you're getting, yeah, a collared shirt, which is pretty different from the version of me you guys have seen before. So cool. All right, well, I see a couple questions there. And before I lose track of them, I'm going to go ahead and answer those. And then I'll start clicking through some of these. But someone asked, let's see, I won't start with that one. Any injuries? My biggest injury was right there at the beginning. So if people watched weeks 1 through like 5, you'll see that, but I had some knee issues right at the very beginning. And luckily after about week 5, it went away and did not come back. So I got pretty lucky in that regard. And I had a couple questions right there at the beginning. Oh, I see some other AT hikers. I'm gonna get distracted. This is gonna be difficult for me, just not responding to all of the things y'all are saying. So cool. I've also heard a lot of people saying that they are getting ready to hike the AT and they have intentions to either next year or the year after or in the future sometime, which is great. So if you guys have any specific questions that you're looking for feedback on, or if I can provide encouragement in any way, please let me know, because I truly believe that anyone can do the AT. There are lots of different ways to hike it. The way that I hiked the Appalachian Trail is just one way of going about it, but there are so many people out there approaching it from so many different ways, and everyone's hike is beautiful in its own way. So I would say just don't let other people's opinions and the way that everyone else hikes the Appalachian Trail hold you back. Just go for it. Pick a day and go for it. New Jersey. Magpie. Magpie, is that Magpie? My Magpie? All right, cool. So I'm just gonna start hitting some of these. All right, there's one. What are the biggest hammock camping lessons from the AT? And would you change your hammock setup if you could? I had a ton of questions about my hammock setup. I think it's something like 15%, if that, maybe more like 12% of through hikers use hammocks. So there were not many of us, and when I found other people who were hammocking, I got all excited and we bonded really quickly over that. I was very happy with my setup. Pretty early, relatively early into the hike, all things considered, I upgraded my tarp. So I have an jungle nest, which has the attached bug net, and straps, the Helio straps, and then I upgraded my tarp to be a Hammock Gear Dyneema tarp. And I didn't have a terribly fancy setup except for the tarp. I invested all of my money into the tarp itself, and that was so worth it. Knowing that I could sleep in the hammock I had, that was primarily what I needed from that. And so investing in the tarp itself took that whole setup to the next level. I did not have issues finding trees. I will say that a couple times I kind of got stuck with having to stay in the shelter if there was space, and I even shared a tent a couple times just because there weren't options. But those cases came up because I was going places that I knew I wouldn't have options. So for example, balds. If you get to the top of a mountain and you're coming up to a bald, there's not going to be trees. And hiking with my tramily, some of those decisions just happened kind of for the group. We knew we were going to a really beautiful area, and I was a little bit rolling the dice that there would be space in the shelters. But those were decisions that I made. You can find trees for hammocks with abandon on the Appalachian Trail. I never was worried about it. My tramily, I believe, is doing well. I have been keeping kind of loose contact with them, but as far as I can tell, everybody is reintegrating to society fairly well. Oh, a different Magpie. That's so cool. I'm curious, Magpie, is that your trail name? All right. Let's see, what else? Did I meet any other vloggers? I did. Yes. Let's see. I met a handful. I probably met a dozen vloggers at different times throughout the trail, and a lot of them I didn't actually see again. For some reason, they were kind of a passing ships in the night sort of a situation. One in particular, Kelsey. I can't remember her handle. I'll try and put it in the comments later, but Lizard is her trail name. I ran into her a couple times, and we tried to adopt her into our tramily, but she had an incredible hike, and she was vibing on her own. So all power to her. But yes, there were a good number of vloggers out there doing it in different styles. Some people were caching all of their videos and are going to be working on the videos post-trail. Some people were doing the daily videos. Actually, not many people doing the weekly. I was kind of surprised. I did get asked why I was doing weekly as opposed to daily videos, and that was so that I could find a middle ground. I knew I wanted to vlog, but I didn't want the vlog to take away from my hike. And I thought that if I was doing the regular everyday videos, I was going to be focusing too much on sharing. So I chose to do the weekly, and that turned out really well for me. My videos were also, as a lot of you probably know, delayed. So that also gave me time to slowly put together my videos without feeling rushed as I went through. And that was really nice. A couple other things about video editing, because I got a couple questions about that on Instagram. I use very rudimentary programs. So I filmed everything on my iPhone. I have the 11 Pro, I believe is what it is. And I edited everything on the free iMovie app. And I made all of my thumbnails and everything on Canva. and then I uploaded right to YouTube from my phone. It's a very simple system. If anyone wants to ask me any more specific questions about video editing, feel free to. I did at one point have to get an external memory card. I used both a USB that plugged into my phone, and then when that filled up, I also got a micro SD card because my only issue that I had with all of the vlogging was storage on my phone. All right, let's see. Oh, I got behind a little bit. Let's see. Hey, y'all. Thank you guys so much. I finished, what is today? Today's the 28th. I finished a month ago, 2 days ago, the 26th of August. So I've been home for a little over a month, and it feels like I've been home for a week. Although that said, it did take a good 3 weeks for me to get used to being in society again. That was probably my biggest adjustment coming off trail, was being used to being around people and fast cars and loud noises again. I think by the end of the Appalachian Trail, I had gotten to a point where 0 days were great and town stays were awesome. And after those days, I was looking forward to the peace and calm of the forest. And so finishing the trail felt like never-ending town days. And they were a little overwhelming at the beginning, but I think I've gotten back used to society, I think. Hopefully, trying to re-enter the job force. Let's see. What do you feel like you should have prepared for more before you left? I don't think I could have done anything else. I think I just had to do it. I think that I put in enough, if not overdid it, on the effort that I needed to before trail. I think I was trying to protect myself a little bit before I left to set myself up for success, particularly mentally, because I knew that the Appalachian Trail was going to be more of a mental game than physical or any else. And I'm glad that I put in effort to those. I think that if you're not starting the AT or you're putting it off because you feel like you need to prepare more, I think that can almost be more detrimental. Just go for it. I don't think that I was lacking anything. If you guys want to see what I was doing to prepare, I do have a video about all the preparations that I was making. So if you want to see the steps that I took to get some ideas, go for it. But also just the biggest hurdle is starting. So you just got to get out there. And I just had to get out there. About a month leading up to the Appalachian Trail, I was just antsy and I just had to start. And I did. Let's see. I think I'm missing some questions. Yay, Kevin, glad you're here. Good to see you again. Let's see, what have I missed? Favorite parts of hiking with a family versus hiking alone? Do you think you got enough alone time on trail? I definitely got enough alone time. Not overly so. I don't mean to say it in that kind of a tense, but there's just so much time. I'm not sure I can quite verbalize the amount of time that you have in your own head on trail. Even hiking with the family, there were days where I wasn't, I'm hiking in quote unquote with them, in the sense that I'm going to the same place at the end of the day. I know they're going to be there. I can expect to see probably at least a few people at lunch, because some people have roughly the same pace as me, but I got to decide what my day looked like. So even having a family, some days I was hiking entirely alone. Some days I was hiking with a few people. Some days I felt I was walking slow. Some days I was walking fast. Some days we ended up all in a line, all 6 of us, and that was really fun. So it was really a good mix. And the nice thing about the family that I did have was that we respected each other's space. which was a really important thing for me to be hiking with people. So I felt like I had the space to take time for myself when I needed it and have people around me as I needed it also. I think the biggest difference for people hiking with a family versus hiking solo is whether hiking with a family, you make a lot of compromises, and that's not good or bad. That's just one way of doing it. I don't think that I compromised anything. I didn't compromise anything that took away from my hike. I think it's just a different style. I liked having people around. I liked the banter that could get brought up. I liked the depth of connection. But a lot of people want the flexibility to change their mind about what they're doing and where they're going in the middle of the day. And that's awesome. That may just lend itself more toward hiking less with a group of people like I did. So I think both are beautiful ways of hiking the Appalachian Trail. I ended up getting both on my experience. The first month I was essentially solo, and then from mile 500 to the end I had a tramily. So I feel like I got a good taste of both of those. My comments jumped. Let's see where I left. How do you feel about your pace? About your pace and finish time? I felt really good about it. Let's see. So I completed the trail in 166 days, which is 5.5 months. When I started, I was telling people and myself that I was going to take 5 to 6 months. So I did exactly what I intended to do. I didn't necessarily change or adjust my schedule. That was mostly a prediction of how I expected my pace to be. And I ended up being about right. I felt really good about my pace in the sense that I felt like I wasn't rushing. I felt like I was getting to see and experience the trail and the community and the people as much as I wanted to without rushing or feeling like I had to slow down and get every little thing. So I feel like I got to experience the exact amount of the trail that I was looking to experience. And I think that that's a lot of why I feel so content with how it went for me. Yay, hammockers. Let's see, what do you appreciate most now that you are back to civilization? Flushing toilets, a comfy bed. Yeah, those are big things. I think that the biggest thing, this is gonna sound so minute, that I was ecstatic about was being able to wash my hands with soap, even just once a day, but multiple times a day. I can go to the bathroom and wash my hands. It's like a whole revelation. I kind of forgot about that luxury. And that's not a luxury I ever would have considered was a luxury before the trail. So that's probably the biggest thing. But yeah, a soft bed. And when it's raining outside, not feeling that sudden kind of knee jerk, oh, okay, what do I need to do? Is my pack cover on? Do I need to put on rain gear? How far am I from a shelter? Is it gonna turn into a thunderstorm? Just like the ease of being like, oh yes. Oh, actually, is it raining right now? It might even be raining right now. That luxury of not having to pay as close of attention to the weather, I've also really enjoyed. Yes, claustrophobic is a really good way of putting it for coming back to society. Is there any other hammock system I would try if I could? There are so many hammock systems out there. I think probably the one I'm most curious about is a bridge hammock. So for those who maybe aren't as familiar with hammocks, the way that my hammock worked is by all of the material at the end of the hammock came together into one point and it all kind of bunched. A bridge hammock lets all of the material go flat and there's usually a bar or some string at the end that keeps it wide. And that's just a different style hammock. And I think that I'm just intrigued. I want to know what that's like. I have never used a bridge hammock. So that's probably the next thing that I would go to try. But I think Dutchware and a lot of other companies are doing really cool things. I've been listening to a few different hammock podcasts, which if anybody wants any suggestions, you might recognize a guest on some of those at some point here. I'm not sure when they're coming out. But let's see. Oh, thank you guys so much for all the kind words. What was the biggest thing you learned about yourself during your hike? That's a hard one to answer because there's just so many things. I think one of the biggest things that I learned is exactly what I just did, is to take a breath. There's a lot of time, like I've mentioned, that you have in your head. And a lot of things, good, bad, every decision you've ever made will flash before you at some point during the hike. And it takes a lot. It took, for me, a good amount of time to get to a point of patience and being able to just chuckle about the past and the way that things happened. I think that probably the biggest takeaway that I have from the hike is just I have a somewhat of a new ability to take time and backtrack and think deeply about what I am about to say and what conversations might be happening around me. I think in the past I had a tendency to jump on things and go for it, and then I'd think about it after the fact. And I'm definitely a lot slower to respond sometimes these days, but I'm also responding in a way that's a lot more true to myself. I hope that made sense and answered your question. Cool. Now that you have had time to reflect on the hike, do you feel you took enough 0 days? Yeah. I don't know if I have a lot more to say about that. I think that we took 0 days when we felt we needed them. And that's what I would suggest doing. I don't think that's something we could have planned out ahead of time. I don't know the total number of 0 days. I do have, it's in my phone. I'm just using my phone to go live right now, so I can't look it up. But I do have the number of 0 days that I took. Soon here, I will try to I kept a lot of statistics, random statistics from the Appalachian Trail, and that's a great reminder. I will make a post somewhat soon here with all of those numbers. Bear canister, pros and cons. I mean, I'm somewhat biased because I love mine. But I would say that the kind of one and only con for me, I know everyone's going to experience it differently, is just the weight. It's a 2-pound tank. And it kept my stuff perfectly dry, perfectly safe. I never had to worry about rodents. I never was really worried about bears. There was only one night in particular where we saw a bear around dinner time, and I just made sure to put my bear can in a hole and then next to a tree. I put it in a place where even if the bear was gonna hit it and try and get into the bear can, I knew which direction it was rolling and where it was going, so that if I had to track it down, I could. But I absolutely loved my bear can. I used it as a stool more times than I could count. Yeah, that was truly awesome. I will definitely have some more post-trail videos coming. This live video is kind of my foray and jump back into video editing. I gave myself basically the entire month off of videoing, just to give myself a break, to give myself the space to process and take time to be home and resettle. So yes, you can watch out, but I will be doing videos on gear. Don't worry, I will give a full video on the things that I finished the trail with, as well as some other videos, including vlogging the Appalachian Trail, women's health, things like that. Oh yeah, I see someone's inviting me to a group hang. Until I hit the Appalachian Trail and was listening to some of these hammock podcasts, did not know that hammock hangs were a thing. So I'm new to them. But if you guys have any particular group hangs that you enjoy, please let me know which ones they are, particularly along the East Coast would be helpful. Although I'm not opposed to a destination. But yes, I'm learning a lot. I realize I took a hammock system on the Appalachian Trail, and I have done more hammock camping in my life than tent camping. And I still consider myself a novice in the world of hammocks because I feel like I kind of landed in it somewhat haphazardly. And I took a system out that is not, in the grand scheme of things, a majorly technical setup. So I'm very much still learning, and I would love to learn from you guys what you like, what you don't like, what you suggest, all that. So hit me with it. I'm all ears. All right, let's see. Thank you guys for keeping this little chat box engaged. That helps. I've got other questions here that I can answer as well, but so far I haven't even left the comment section. Let's see. Was it harder to be away from loved ones than you expected? Probably yes, is the short answer. Long answer. Being that I have never before the Appalachian Trail been in that situation of taking that much time away from people I care so much about. Especially considering the lack of service and availability in some of the areas added kind of to the toughness of that sort of a situation. It was very hard. I saw a lot of people struggling with homesickness or just missing people that were back home. And I think that there's beauty in that, in the sense that I think there's beauty in having that support system and having people we care so deeply about at home. But yes, it was one of the more challenging sides of trail, to decide every single day that I was staying out there and not coming home to the people I love. It was a decision every day. Yay. Oh, cool. Some hammock hangs. Thank you guys. All right, I've got a couple of what's next for you questions, and I have that lots of places. I will be continuing my channel. I have, like I've mentioned, a post-trail video series that I will be coming out with. Okay, don't get distracted, Allie. I have a post-trail series that I'll be coming out with. I also am really looking forward to sharing some of the trails that I love from here back home. So Western North Carolina area, some of those trails. Also, if I travel anywhere, I will probably be making some videos about the places that I am hiking and the places that I go. So yeah, you can, if you like this channel, stay engaged with it, because I don't plan to close it anytime soon. As far as trails, you would be amazed. It was the first week of trail that people were asking if I was, not me specifically, but the question was on trail of, are you going to go do the PCT next? Who's going to do the CDT? Who's triple crowning? And that, I guess, surprised me. Maybe in retrospect, I shouldn't have been as surprised as I was, but I just felt so early to be talking about that. I didn't even know in the first week if I liked through hiking. So yeah, it pretty well shocked me. I'm not going to say yes or no to either of those questions, though, or either of those trails, I should say. It would be so cool to Triple Crown one day. And if I'm being completely frank, there are so many other trails that are on my bucket list, my trail bucket list first. I think that those trails are awesome, and I would love to hit them one day. And I've got other trails that I have in mind first. So through hiking is not, the Appalachian Trail was not my last through hike. But there are so many places that I'm interested in going to next. So PCT and CDT are not out of the question, but they will not be immediate. I can go ahead and tell you that. I should try the Florida Trail eventually. Man, the Florida Trail is one of those trails that everyone has the most opinions about. I'll tell you that. And maybe I'll leave it there. Favorite section of trail and what was the toughest? Let's see. Favorite section of trail. Gosh, it's hard to compare them. It's like comparing apples and oranges. Each section had its own personality. I would say if I'm categorizing the trail into 3 sections, which I've been doing somewhat in my mind, there was the South, the Mid-Atlantic, and the North. The South and the North, man, I can't compare them, but they were both just so breathtaking. It was a bit more of a sentimental journey for me in the South because this is where I'm from. And so I got to set foot on a lot of the trails that I have been on before, and been near and helped with and done maintenance on as a thru hiker. And I got to see a lot of the mountains that I grew up in as a thru hiker. And so it was kind of a little bit more of a mental, awe-inspiring journey for the South. The North was like a whole new world. I mean, not much compares to the Whites and Southern Maine in terms of those views. Just absolutely amazing. I don't know if I could pick a favorite section, but the South and the North, I mean, we started real strong and we ended real strong. Let's see. How often did you communicate with family and my significant other while hiking? So it depends. Well, I should start with my experience. I was able to talk to someone, even if it wasn't usually a phone call, but I could get a message out almost every day. I think the longest that I went without any messages or without the capability of sending a message should I want to was maybe 3 or 4 days. That said, everyone has a little bit of a different experience with reception on the trail. My carrier is Verizon, so if that helps you. But everyone had different experiences with being able to connect with home. What was my longest stretch of time off trail? Trail days. Trail days was the longest that I took off trail. That was, I believe, let's see, we arrived on Friday, we spent all day Saturday, and then we left Sunday. So I think it was, and we did a partial hiking day both Friday and Sunday actually. So maybe a total of 2 0 days is the longest that we took off in a row. Come hike in Oregon, the West Coast. Man, I hear y'all. I would love to do some hiking out there. I got my eye on a couple, in fact. I just have to get over there. That's the problem. Oh, cool. There's a hang near Linville. I will definitely have to look into that one. That's probably the most local hang that we're gonna get. All right, how is my adjustment post-trail? I've also had some questions. I'm gonna combine it with some other questions I've gotten about the physical adjustment of being home, because that's a really important part of that as well. My tea is at the perfect temperature right now, I'm sorry. So I've kind of talked about the social side. It's been like reverse culture shock coming back from trail. In terms of physicality and physical health, I gave myself 1 week of not doing anything. I mean, I walked a little bit here and there to go get coffee and things like that, but I wasn't running or anything to that effect. I did a little bit of stretching here and there just because the hiker hobble followed me, and some days I wake up and I get out of bed and I still think that I have a little bit of a hiker hobble. That has probably been the longest lasting effect is my feet. The arches of my feet, and like the midsection of my feet are still sore, which is kind of unbelievable. But like I said, I took that 1 week off, and then I got back into stretching, yoga, a little bit of strength training, but the biggest thing I've jumped into was running, and it was like Bambi running for the first time. I forgot how to run. My mom spent like a half a mile. She was with me for the first time I tried to run. We went for a run together, and I think she laughed at me for a half mile because I didn't know what to do with my legs. So it took a whole adjustment to get back into that. But I did. And I have found that, or what I found, it's adjusting now. I'm kind of hitting a point of equilibrium, but I found that my lung capacity and my muscles could take off. They could run better than I had been running before trail. It was mostly, funny enough, the mental side of how long I wanted to be out there running that has been limiting me. And that's been kind of exciting. I've had my eyes on some new goals in that respect because, I came back in a lot better shape than I started the trail in. Did I use the Far Out app? I absolutely did. Every day. It is still on my phone in the bottom menu bar so that it's always there. Every single day, multiple times a day. Sometimes when I was bored, I would pull up Far Out and just scroll comments and see if I could find the weirdest hostel coming up or the most off-the-wall food place at the next town. It was almost like our version of social media, if you can imagine that. Describe the most amazing trail magic I remember. There was some good trail magic. If y'all followed my journey, you know that Queen Diva played a major role in the trail magic that we received. I mean, what a woman. Huge thank you. I don't know if anyone out there is in her congregation, but huge thank you to her church. She's funded by her church and specific family members. So big thank you to all the people who are funding Queen Diva to come out and give trail magic because, wow, she was amazing. Aside from Queen Diva, because I obviously am a little bit biased, there was a gentleman at the beginning of the trail, Mr. Moped. That's his trail name. And he was on trail for the first week, and then he went home to New York, and his son was out through hiking, Stairmaster, and Mr. Moped came out to give Stairmaster some trail magic, and stayed out for several days. And they also got funded, I can't remember by who, but that was the one and only time that I saw trail magic coming out of a U-Haul trailer. They had 2 tents set up. They had little takeaway baggies of snacks so you could resupply your snack selection. They had hot food. It was also a cold day. This was right before entering Grayson Highlands State Park, which is literally right before it. We were at the road crossing where we then went through the gate to go into Grayson Highlands. And it was a cold day, and they had hot cider and hot food, and that was just absolutely incredible. And also one of the first times for me on trail that I came across someone on trail that I hadn't seen, in 3 weeks. So that was a really special moment to see them again. Let's see, I think I'm getting behind here, which is a good problem to have. Thank you guys for hitting me with this, because I can ramble, but I'd like to ramble about the things you want to know. Do you think there's any areas of trail that seemed particularly dry for access to resupply and finding really good hostels? The thought of running an outpost or hostel along the trail seems very cool. Yeah. There's a lot of talk from thru hikers on trail about wanting to open hostels. I think the biggest, suggestion that I heard from hostel owners is if that's something that you're interested in doing, go work at one first. I don't have personal experience to say one way or the other about that, but it seems like that is the biggest recommendation. If you want to go do that, awesome. But go get your feet wet with it first to see what that atmosphere is actually like. In terms of areas that were drier, as the Appalachian Trail gets more popular, and it is one of the most popular trails, more resources are popping up. I would say I'm trying to think what I could even say for areas that were dry for resupply. There are some places in Maine and in the mid-Atlantic where to get to town, it's a bit of a hitch. And I say a bit of a hitch in terms of maybe a 20-minute drive. Being a 20-minute drive outside of town, it really was not bad. My food supply carries went up to 6 days. So I never had to carry more than 6 days of food at a time. And if I was really being frugal or moving faster than I was, I could have carried less than that. All right, average monthly cost for the trail. I spent essentially what I budgeted. I budgeted for $1,000 a month on trail, and that's essentially what I spent. I spent a little less toward the beginning and a little more toward the end. And I think that that's for a couple reasons. Things got more expensive on trail as you go north. Hostels in the south are $30-35 for a bunk, and up north you can pretty regularly see costs about $50 for a bunk. And I think that that's just natural. The cost of groceries went up when you got up into New England, little things like that. So, and at the same time, the closer I got toward the end of trail, I could see my remaining budget, and so I knew that I had a little bit more to play with because I hadn't spent quite as much in the south. So I ended up compensating and buying myself more town meals, things like that up north, because I knew what funds I had to play with. But in terms of the average, it came out to $1,000 a month, and that was that allowed me to live somewhere between frugally and platinum blazing the AT. I lived comfortably. I did not spend left and right, but I was able to comfortably hike the trail and have the luxuries that I wanted when I wanted them. Is there any way we can donate to your future adventures? You sure can. I do have a Venmo. My Venmo is under Appalachian Adventurista. After this video, excuse me. After this video, I'll go through and update the video description. But if you want to do it now, you can check out my video descriptions for any of my on-trail videos. And I've got a link to, actually, I can't remember if it's a link, but it's got my Venmo name. So if you wanted to contribute funds, you can do it in that way. Thank you. Thank you a lot for that. It will go directly toward adventures and YouTube. Let's see, how old were the oldest people on trail and how do you think they managed? Oh man, I was so impressed and inspired by some of the people I met, especially at the beginning of trail. I think I ran into more retired people than any other demographic on the Appalachian Trail, which surprised me because I think the stereotype comes out that it's all 20-somethings, which I fit into the category of. But you would be shocked. I think that we may just be the loudest demographic on trail, is my assumption. But yeah, probably, I mean, I don't know exactly about the oldest. I wasn't asking folks' age, but you know, there were folks out there who were showing me pictures of their grandchildren. And I've got some really good friends too who I'm looking forward to visiting once I get a little bit more settled here. But they managed great. Everyone, I started to mention this at the very beginning of this video, but everyone hikes differently. So I think that they managed awesome. They may not have been hiking the same exact way I was, but that's just different styles of hiking. I think that they were absolutely crushing it for what they were doing. And there were some people who were blowing me out of the water in terms of what they were physically able to do. So all kinds on the Appalachian Trail, absolutely. What food did you not get tired of eating? Yeah, amazingly, I didn't get tired of dinners. I think I kept it interesting enough. My dinners, so I made a lot of, I say a lot, I made enough for myself to have 8 different resupply boxes along the AT, and those had my homemade meals in them. And if you want to know more about those, I do have a video talking about some of the homemade backpacking meals that I made for myself, and they worked amazingly. I loved those. Aside from that, though, because all things considered, that actually wasn't many meals in the grand scheme of the AT. Aside from that, my dinners were Knorr rice sides and instant mashed potatoes. And what I did to keep things interesting is I became the condiment queen. So I always had multiple condiments. I always had the hot sauce. I found the cutest little container of honey at one point. Mayonnaise, mustard. My friend had red wine vinegar little packets in some of his boxes, so I ended up with some of those. And then I started carrying tomato paste. You can get tomato paste in like a little squeeze pouch. That was always in my bear can. And then I would pick up things like French onions and repack those into a Ziploc bag because they're wildly lightweight. And they have so much flavor and actually a surprising number of calories. And I just had different combinations of things that I could then add into my meals. So that was a really big way that I kept my meals interesting. The only thing that I will say I got tired of eating, and I would be fine to never see again in my life, is a tuna packet. Chicken packets are totally fine. Tuna? No dice. That said, I've had actual tuna since being home, and actual tuna is fine, but there's something about the tuna that comes out of the packets that I am just spent on. Does Seth do longer hikes? Seth is my boyfriend, for anyone who's unfamiliar with that name. And he may be coming home here at some point while I'm on live, but he does not do longer hikes yet. We'll see. This is a big cup. This reminds me, if anyone is familiar with Friends, this reminds me of the coffee cups that they drink from in Friends. Do you have any recommendations for aspiring trail magic providers? I love that question. I appreciate that you're looking to provide what people need. If it is in any way cold outside, hot food, hot tea, hot coffee, something to warm up hikers inside. Particularly in Georgia at the start of the thru hiking season. Man, that was nice. Having things that hikers can take away. Some of my favorites that I got were peanut M&Ms, because I'm now addicted to those. Packets of peanut M&Ms, things like little tea packets, instant coffee packets, the Alpine something cider packets also. Phenomenal. Let's see, other things. I would say, depending on where you are, it's really cool to get trail magic that's specific to the area. So when we got up to Vermont, for example, we started getting these little maple energy packets, which was special, maple in Vermont. North Carolina, I would say, I would say Cheerwine, things like that. It was kind of cool to get trail magic that was regionally specific. Were poisonous snakes a problem? Where did you see them most? I saw them most definitely in the Mid-Atlantic, and I think that's partly just because of the season, and also because that's where the rocks begin. Fun fact, the rocks don't end. Everyone gives Pennsylvania a hard time about rocks. And they have one type of rock that gets kind of monotonous and beats up your feet, but They never ended after that. That said, snakes don't exist in some of the super high elevations like in the whites. So, and also it cooled off by the time we got there. So probably the mid-Atlantic. I only ever saw timber rattlesnakes. I am sure that copperheads saw me. I just never saw them. They were never a problem though. Even the timber rattlesnakes, we got rattled at a couple times, but I only even saw one move. The timber rattlesnakes are pretty docile. They'll just let you know if they see you. Did you see or meet any hikers that you admired or respected for one reason or another? Oh my gosh. I mean, I could have a separate hour of time just talking about all the people I met that inspired me. There are so many people out there and so many new friends that I have and connections that I have that I'm so happy to be bringing back into the real world. Yeah, I mean, everyone I met. That was one of the really fun things on trail, was getting people's life stories and finding out how they ended up that day on that spot of the trail at the same place you are. That was just one of my favorite things to do. So, someone's asking if my food tasted like laundry for the latter half of my journey. So you must have seen the video where I did trail laundry in my bear can. I love that reference. That was a crazy day. Thankfully, no, my stuff did not smell like laundry. I used my Dr. Bronner's, put some water in my bear can, mixed it all up, and churned my clothes in my bear can like butter. And that was how I did my laundry one time in New York. And no, they did not smell like laundry, partly because I was using Dr. Bronner's. It was very baseline clean. It was kind of a, in case of emergency, laundry incident where it was just a very long time and I knew it was going to continue to be a long time before I could do laundry. So that's where we ended up, in a public bathroom. The single hardest week for you personally on the AT and the single best week. That's a hard question. I'm going to think about that. I'll come back to it. Were single through hikers common or rare? I am going to somewhat run with the assumption that you're talking about single as in like not with a tramily. And that's common. If you're talking about in a relationship, I'm not sure I know because I didn't ask everyone. I don't know everyone's story. Any sections of trail that I would like to do again? Oh man, all of New England. I think I would like to re-experience parts of Connecticut and Massachusetts and Vermont. That was one of the sections we got the most rain. And I would like to revisit some of those mountains when I'm not soaked through. Yeah. This is a bowl with a handle. You are absolutely correct. Do I still have a hiker hobble? Yes. It's slight, but yes, it's mostly coming from my feet. What are your thoughts on when people leave trail magic food alongside the trail unattended? I'm always worried it will attract bears. That is the problem. I think if you're leaving food in a non-bear safe manner on the trail, you have to revisit it at least once that day. You have to come back for it, basically. There were definitely, unfortunately, places that we found on trail where people had taken coolers out and left food, and it was clearly weeks old. And not only was there just not food left, but it was just trash sitting on the trail. And that was really disappointing to see. And sometimes you could see little trails of trash leading away from those coolers where animals had gotten into it because it had just been there for that long. They were attracted to the smell even though there wasn't food. So it's not the greatest way to do trail magic. I think that there is an okay way of doing it if you're putting it in a bear safe container and coming back for it. Yeah, that's what I'd say for that one. Best and worst day on trail. All right, I'll come back to that question. Day/week, I'm gonna kind of merge together, but in terms of days, one of my best days on trail was immediately following one of my worst, or maybe it was 2 days later or something to that effect, but relatively immediately following it. One of my worst days on trail, if not the worst day on trail, was leaving Hot Springs, North Carolina. A lot of factors led into that, but essentially it was the one and only time on trail that I considered going home, realistically. I think it was a combination of factors. Being close to home, I was only about an hour from home, and I had my support system come and visit me in Hot Springs, and I think that was, while it was awesome, it was also the first time I'd seen them on trail since I started. And it was almost too tempting, I think is what happened. At that point, I was kind of fed up with being a solo hiker. I'd been having a little bit of a bad week in terms of being solo on trail. And then I saw my support system, and then I had to say goodbye to my support system, and then it rained all day. And something I was not prepared for before I left is that saying goodbye to your people at the beginning of the trail is one thing. Every subsequent time that you say goodbye to them, or at least for me, was harder. Each time I had to say goodbye was harder than the time before because I knew how much I had missed them and I had been missing them. And it was harder to say goodbye and go our own directions each time. So if someone is going out there to hike the trail, I would say just keep that in mind, that may be something that comes up. But one of my greatest days followed. I stayed on trail, clearly, and I had a moment of clarity, we'll call it. I made a couple new friends on trail, and I kind of had a recommitment in the woods on my own to finishing the trail. I decided that yes, even though I was hiking solo, if I was hiking solo to the end, I was okay with that. And while it wasn't my preference and I was going to keep my eye out for opportunities to hike with people that I liked, I wasn't going to rush into anything. If it came to it, I was prepared to finish the trail solo. And that was a pretty empowering day and one of my best. That was the day I went over Big Bald. I'm not sure if that's North Carolina or Tennessee. It's kind of in that questionable zone. But yeah, that was one of my best days. How heavy was my pack? My pack was about, I don't know what it ended at, to be fair, but it was about 30 pounds with 1.5 liters of water and 5 days of food. My base weight came out to about 18 pounds. And if you want to see the gear that I started with, I do have a video on that, as well as a lighter pack list link in that video description. Oh, thank you guys so much. KT tape is a mystery to me. It is to me too, but gosh darn, it works. Did I notice a distinct difference between states in quality or number of public parks and facilities? No? I don't think I did. Let me think for a second, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Different states clearly managed the trail differently. I loved Pennsylvania's signs. They had these big wooden signs. Those were really cool. I think each state was just a little bit different. And depending on where you were at in each state as well, some areas were just more remote or not. There's going to be a little bit of noise. Seth is arriving home. He may say hello. He may not. I'm going to keep going. The northern cookie lady versus the southern cookie lady. Which one's better? Man, I can't compare. The southern cookie lady, I will say, has just the most picture perfect setup. You turn a corner, you walk down the road, there's moss in the middle of her little driveway. It's a cabin in the woods. There was smoke coming out of the chimney. It was just picturesque. And the northern cookie lady makes hibiscus tea. So, I don't know. Take your pick. Do you want to say hi?
I'll say hi.
Say hello to the people of YouTube.
Oh, they're there.
Yeah, I know. This is Seth for anyone who has not met him.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
We're answering questions.
All right. Yeah, hit me. What do you want to know?
Are you answering questions? Seth is
Yeah.
apparently answering questions also. So
Where have I been? All
playing disc golf.
Good cover story.
All right, I'm going to keep going. I'll let you know if there's any questions for you.
Okay, great. I'll be ready.
All right. Let's see where I left off. Cookie lady. Let's see. Did I encounter any problems using my hammock? Not particularly. I did have problems with the original tarp I started out with. I kind of mentioned this before, but one of the big things that I picked when I grabbed my tarp, and when I chose the one that I wanted to use, was one that had doors on the end that closed it in, because I knew that wind was going to be whipping along with rain, and that was one of the big things that attracted me to that item. So I would say definitely that's a big plus for a hammock setup, is having doors on your tarp. People remembered my hot springs moment. It was a moment. I have the support of the Gatewood family. As in Grandma Gatewood? Could I get some clarification there? That's very cool. Did I lose or gain weight? Both. I gained muscle, and I lost a little bit of weight. I didn't lose a whole lot. I started and ended the trail about 10 pounds off. 10 pounds less than what I had started with, but I kind of assume I lost more than that and then gained some back in muscle. How did my feet hold up in terms of blisters, loose toenails? I amazingly got one blister on trail, and that one blister stayed with me for 4 weeks. I almost named it, but I didn't. All things considered, my feet held up okay. I do still have Christmas toes. And if you don't know what that is, that's just, it's nerve damage. So my feet got nerve damage, and I can't feel the ends of my toes still. So fingers crossed that feeling comes back. Seth, you're getting a lot of love.
Oh, I'm famous. Tell my fans I said hello.
I'm sure they can hear you. How hard is the heat and bugs to tolerate? It was a challenge. I definitely think my head bug net was invaluable. I actually used bug spray that was not DEET. Coming from an ecology background, I just had a hard time knowing what that was going to be doing to all of the little red efts that I was seeing on trail. I couldn't bring myself to put that in the forest. So I didn't use DEET, and I actually was fine with that. I did have permethrin treated clothing and gear, and I think that that also played a really big role. I almost probably could have done without the bug spray in most areas. Seth, I do have some questions for you when you're ready.
All right. I'm making spaghetti.
No.
What else they got?
What's your longest hike that you've ever been on?
The longest hike? I don't know. Probably 2 weeks through.
Let's go down.
Hi guys. I don't know. I used to go camping and go to summer camp, and some of the options at my summer camp at Camp Nasoka was to go camping for a week straight. So camped for a week, came back we were doing church, and then I went camping for the rest of the week. So that was still in Western North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's 2 weeks in the woods nearly.
Yeah. And then how about this? How hard was it to have your partner, moi, gone for 5.5 months?
How hard is it to have your partner gone for 5.5 months? It can be challenging, but we still had pretty good access to each other. We were able to talk most days. The longest we went without talking was maybe just 3 or 4 days. So it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, luckily had pretty good service with Verizon.
Yeah, signal was pretty good. We got to do some FaceTimes. We did dates where
we did do virtual dates.
We were looking at our phones where we would go on tours of museums and look at drawings, but that quickly delved into us looking at puppies.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we've been dreaming about our future dog for a while now.
His name is Strider. He's an Australian Shepherd. He's a very good boy.
He doesn't exist.
He doesn't exist. He's the best though.
Thank you.
Happy to help.
Yeah. All right. Thanks y'all for asking such fun questions. This is great. Oh my gosh, and we're at over an hour. Okay, I'm gonna answer a handful more questions, and then that might be it for today. If I'm missing anything, feel free to shoot me a message. My Instagram is also linked on my YouTube channel. So if you would like to, you can follow that and send me a direct message on there if I didn't quite get to your question. I'm happy to answer it. Someone asked what caused the nerve damage, and I still don't know. I wish I had an answer to that. Let's see. Do you still wear your sun hoodie every day? Is it retired? Oh, that thing is not retired. And amazingly, I got the hiker stink out of it. I actually wore it the other day for playing disc golf a little bit. But yeah, I love that thing. My Jolly Gear sun hoodie is one of my favorite gear items for sure. Do I have a favorite mountain in the Whites? I'm not going to say a mountain, but I think that my favorite was the miles leading up to Lake of the Clouds Hut, which is right before Mount Washington. There was stretches in there that were ridge walking on a beautiful flat-ish path that was just like Franconia Ridge without the people. So that was probably my favorite little section in the Whites, was leading up to Lake of the Clouds. That was also a really emotional day for me because Lake of the Clouds Hut was the one hut that I had been dreaming about since I knew I was going to start the AT. And that was the day that we were ending there. So it was just a big moment. And I actually got surprised with the hut itself. I turned a corner and I didn't realize quite how close we were to the end of our day. And I turned a corner and the hut was right there. And it was just, I can still feel the emotion. So I got goosebumps. It was quite the day. The Gatewards are good friends of yours. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Please tell them I am a huge fan of theirs. Let's see. Any interest in finishing the long trail in Vermont or through hiking it? Absolutely. That trail would be amazing. I would love to go sometime and do the whole thing all at once. There's only a couple of days that the Appalachian Trail and the long trail overlap. So I know a lot of people go back and finish out the long trail after hiking the Appalachian Trail because they've already checked off a piece of it. But all things considered, it wasn't that much of the long trail. So one day I do very much hope to go back and just do the whole thing again and have the true Vermont experience. Let's see. All right. I'm gonna pick a couple questions here, and then I think that will be about all the time that I've got for today. Someone asked what I was most worried about going into the hike and how did it play out on trail. I think I was most worried about not liking it. And that's not something I really voiced because that's a scary thing to admit that could happen. And I didn't want to admit to myself even that it was a possibility, but I think that was my biggest fear, was just that I was not gonna like it. And luckily I did. But not everyone does. Through hiking and the Appalachian Trail is not for everyone. I am not one of the people that thinks that everybody should stay on trail, which is kind of a controversial opinion sometimes, and one that I'm sure folks will have opinions about, but yeah, everyone experiences the trail differently and everyone has a different relationship with through hiking. So I got lucky in that it meshed with my life well. Do I have plans for a future big adventure? Yes. And I'm gonna leave it there. Let's see. All right, anything I'm missing? Awesome. Okay, I think I've got everything. Let me just make sure there's nothing else. Oh, a quick question I can answer. People ask me how many pairs of shoes I went through. I went completely through 4, and my 5th pair of shoes is the pair that I summited Katahdin with, and I've still been running with since I got home. So yeah, 4 full pairs of shoes. I used them for about exactly 500 miles each. I had the Ultra Lone Peaks, and I could feel it for the last 100. I knew that it was coming up on the end, so I would not take those shoes past 500 based on my experience. Cool. A book in my future? I get asked that a lot, and to be honest, I need to ask myself that a little bit more in depth before I even can answer you. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining in. This has been lovely. I appreciate y'all's support and all of your kind words. There will be more stuff coming out. Please let me know what specific videos you want, although rest assured that a gear video is very much at the top of the list. So it's one of my favorite things to talk about as a gear junkie. So I will be telling you what I finished with. But yeah, if there's anything in particular that you guys wanted to hear about, yeah, like I said, send me a message. Yeah, and I'll update the video description for this video in just a moment here with my Venmo and some other information as well. I will also include a link to the band who allowed me to use their music in my videos for the Appalachian Trail. It's Cherry Blossom Special, and they do have a link to Spotify, so I will include that in the description as well. Lovely people, good friends. Yay, awesome. Thank you guys so much. I hate to end it, but I have to. Thank you guys so much, and I will chat with you real soon. Have a good night, everybody.